horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Fensler in the morning continued to drift. He was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon. John Leng and Chris Lowe-Malvo will be going through all the topics of the week. But to start the show off, obviously, today you will know the terrible news coming over from Ireland that young jockey Mikey O'Sullivan has passed away in the early hours of this morning. Just 24 years old, 4-time Grade 1 winning jockey, including twice on Marine National, once in the Supreme Novice Hurdle at the festival, was certainly his most notable triumph. And it's left a somber taste in a lot of people's mind. Indeed, we thought twice about doing a podcast today, whether people had got the appetite for it. Well, it turns out you have, because you're saying lots of questions. So our aim is to cheer people up, and we pass on our deepest respects to Mikey O'Sullivan. John, would you like to add anything to what I've said?
Yeah. I mean, it always seems the brightest stars burn bright but short. And this tragedy will be felt by all of Ireland's racing family and beyond. I just hope his family finds some comfort in the memory of his terrific ability and achievement doing what he loved doing. God bless the lad.
Yeah, no parents should ever be burying the kids.
Yeah.
And
God bless his family as well, because, whatever you think of the afterlife, if there is one or isn't one, the pain is borne by his family and friends. And I think, it's a tragedy when any young person dies without fulfilling their potential. So, love to his family and friends.
Indeed, it is, as we know, a very tough sport. These jockeys, we sometimes moan through our pockets in terms of bad rides and things like that. But you have to be of a certain disposition to be getting on the back of a horse, jumping 5'2" fences at 31, 32 miles an hour. It's certainly a sobering reminder of that, as we've lost certainly a promising young jockey and someone that will probably have gone on to do much greater things. So, yeah, very sad. And we understand everyone's pain on this, that follow the sport very closely. We'll move on and review the weekend, John. There wasn't a lot to make of this weekend, was there, in terms of like Cheltenham action, perhaps? Or is there anything that sort of took your eye over the weekend?
Well, I think we're at the stage of the season now where one weekend very much melds into another, because we're getting less and less festival prospects running because they're keeping them under wraps. It's only going to get worse for the next 3 weeks. There's not a lot we can do about that. I think the big story at the weekend was the ditch resurgence, possibly. It seemed to attract quite a lot of comments.
After we said they were finished last week.
Well, I didn't.
Well, I did. Did she finish?
Quite a bit of comment about the new regime there, but anyway, we'll expand on that later, maybe.
We shall. Pete Dory, obviously very impressive in a race that was tailor-made, I suppose, for him, in terms of that's the right course and distance on the right ground. If we sort of to take something out of that, there might be just a couple of things. I don't know what Dan was doing running Phlegmatique in that. That was a strange bit of placing, and what he's got in mind for that. But that was an odd run. It's in the what used to be the Racing Post Trophy at Kempton, John. I'm wondering if he's been lined up for that. Mark of 130. Last year, he was running in the same event off 140, John, and finished fourth to full forward.
What's he like with a gap of a week?
Well, that's it, isn't it? I suppose if you were just having a floater, which it looked like it.
It's just, again, to me, I mean, I'm probably really sure to being a Mickey Henderson type trainer, but it seems an unnecessary risk to me to run on a week before a target.
Could be.
I don't know.
Corbett's Cross interests me as a horse, because for something anyway, because last 2 starts, they ran him at Wexford in October, which not a track I'd ever see it suiting Corbett's Cross very well. And then it was Kempton in the King George on good ground, and everyone said, that seems a strange, horse wants deep ground and a trip. I suppose if it comes up like really testing at the Fez, which I can't see, but if it does, you could see him sort of sneaking into a place, couldn't you, in the Gold Cup.
He doesn't strike me as a really agile type of horse.
No.
He's one of them, you could almost recommend 3.5 mile on soft ground and a straight.
Yeah. coursing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But synchronised, a little bit like that.
Yeah, he can be untidy at his fences when he's rushed. Like Aintree, that sort of found him out a little bit when he was third to Jerry Colom in last year's sort of Aintree Bowl there, the Grade 1 at the national meeting.
That's a fucker of a place to jump down, isn't it?
It is, especially if you just miss the odd one out. Remember, in recent times, we've said we think they've made the Cheltenham course less stiff.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? That Cheltenham maybe have made their course like less stiff offences, like took some birch out? Because
for sure. I mean, I certainly wouldn't compare Cheltenham with the Malmö course.
No.
The Malmö course is way trickier.
Well, again, Corbett's Cross, I don't think at 20 to 1 I'm bouncing up and down, but it's one of them really. Just wait for conditions. I reckon if it is going to be soft heavy, I can see that playing right into Corbett's Cross's hands, to run a big race. Hard to see Galloping beat whatever, but nevertheless, that's something for you bigger price merchants to consider.
You can say about running stinkers as well, couldn't you? So
sure. The other one that took my eye on Saturday was in the Victor Ladorum, and it was the winner, Gibbs Island. I think this is a very well bought horse at 70k. He was decent on the flat for Andrew Oliver and sort of unimpressive on his hurdling debut, but obviously it can be. But the improvement shown there at Haydock, where he absolutely did them for Tur, jumped well. He was too keen early in the race because they went no pace, and he absolutely put them to sleep. And I thought that was a big run, and I can see him progressing from that run. I'm a little bit less enthusiastic. I am hearing off a friend of mine who has shares in the horse that he's going to run in the Triumph. Whilst I understand, because if you think about it, there's not many 4-year-old hurdles, or save it for Aintree, where you might meet the same two again, Lolamba and East India Dock. I do think front two in the market in that are above standard of normal Triumph hurdle winners. Would you agree with that?
Who trains Gibbs Island, just for those that don't know?
Tom Lacey.
Tom Lacey, okay, yep, okay.
He's a horse that I think he's going to make a lot better jumper than Flat Horse. We haven't got to the bottom of him, and he's worth following going forward.
Is he any good, Tom Lacey, would you say? Would he be one of yours?
He can do a job.
Yeah.
Get horses ready. And he's more of a trainer that buys them and then sells them for profit, if you know what I mean.
Okay. That's the best way, selling them for profit, I find. It's I'm very good at the latter, selling them for losses, I'm sure. But yeah, he's one of those yards I can't work out. Do you know what I mean? Because he have purple patches, won't he, where he will have winner, and then he'll go quiet. So I can work him out. But he's looked at good horse, though, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the skill, though, with trainers. Because I always think that trainers like that are probably the most shrewdest. As in, if you've got handicappers, it's not necessarily good to just go up £30, is it, after 3 wins?
No, not at all.
Maybe win a couple and then that's it, then rough it off and start running it back downfield until it's...
Yeah, you see that, don't you? It's like somebody on a higher level, somebody like, I think, who's brilliant. I think he's tremendous. He's Gavin Cromwell. So he'll go quiet for ages, won't he? Most seasons it'll be always horses are out of form, but then come the big events, bang, it's bang, 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 bang. I think he's brilliant, and I think you're right. The best trainers are quite happy to go quiet for ages because they've got bigger pots in mind, and he's brilliant at it, Gavin Cromwell, I think. Personally.
Yeah, he's not been brilliant on something that we'll come to in a bit. But
no,
But Gibbs Island there want to follow up. Tom Lacey probably does a job with horses. He's not getting the big expensive buys that Pumpkin gets. We shall swiftly move on to that, John. On your questions on Twitter, you said Pumpkin relying on Mystic Megs. John, what's the story?
Well, that's the thing now, isn't it? Is it Tom Malone who's been doing the buying?
Yes.
There's been somewhat sidelined for the 26-year-old prodigy.
Is she 26 now, Megan? That's flown.
I think so. I think that's what I read.
That has flown. You still think the kids, when you sort of like look at...
I think in horse terms, probably, yeah.
Well, yeah. Simply, you're saying that a father is relying on her now more to do...
She's actually going to play a prominent role in starting the horses, which I wish him the best of luck with. And I don't mean to sound glib about Megan Nicholls' ability here at all, because I actually like the kid. I think it's clear when she appears on telly, she has done some homework, unlike plenty of former jockeys who were on the telly who were coasting through it. And I think her enthusiasm for her dad's yard shines through when she's on the telly. Some don't like it. I find it pretty all right, to be honest. Why shouldn't she be happy if her dad has a winner?
Yeah.
it adds a bit of humanity to the coverage. I'm sure Ed Chamberlain likes that angle as well. You know, I don't think RTV will be doing anything to discourage it.
It's authentic, though. You know, it's not contrived. It's not confected.
If people speak from the heart about the sport, I don't have a problem with them.
No.
Basically, I hope she does well, but given the nature of this game, I think now there's a lot of eyes on her and what she's sourcing. There's going to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And she's been getting what I would call free hits, like doing a bit of behind in the background, and some people that aren't so bothered making big purchases. Now she's going to come under scrutiny, and I hope it's not too pressurised for her.
I mean, they're on a hide into nothing, aren't they? English trainers, particularly if you want to compete at the very top level, which clearly Ditchit want to do, because you know they're preeminent in the domestic scene. You know, you'll find that Willie Mullins, and I've said this before, you know, he has access to horses that are not offered for public sale, so he's having the pick. So the stuff he gets in for, you know, for his top owners, you know, formerly Rich Richie and now your man that owes Gino and all that sort of business, those horses typically don't go through the ring. So what you're left with is everybody else who's scrabbling to find a bargain. And I think, you know, that's cool if you just want to win a few handicaps or land a touch. But if you're looking to win Cheltenham races, the very best stock is already, you know, sitting in Close Sutton, and everybody else is kind of struggling. So I think she's up against it, as everyone is.
I take a couple of positives from this. I like the fact that Paul Nicholls is still feeling competitive enough to change things up a bit.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we've said enough on here about bloodstock agents more than willing to have your pants down. If your back's to the wall and you're trying to fight back, why not rely on family?
Yeah, they're not going to have you over, are well, you'd hope not.
She is going to pull her guts out to find your top horse.
Yes.
No question.
Yeah. No, there's no hidden agenda, is there? She's not trying to screw a few quid for herself, or to do a side deal with the breeder or whatever, or the seller. You know, what she buys will be bought in good faith for the owners with the intention of trying to win. Now, whether she's right or wrong, at least you know if she fails, it's because, you know, she hasn't got the eye for it.
I would fucking love her to buy him a Gold Cup winner.
Yeah, me and all. I would. Genuinely, I would, and I think, you know, good on her. Good on her.
Nah, fuck them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh, you're a horrible person, aren't you? Oh.
Horrible, man. No. In all seriousness, I liken Megan's role to something like a horse racing tipster, which is, it's the same thing. Literally, you've got to get it right or you lose punters.
Yeah.
If you don't source the right one for the big owners they've got left and they keep flopping or keep whatever, then them owners start to go elsewhere. The same as when you're running a tipping service, it's simple as you don't give them winners or profit, then it's bye-bye. It is a pressurised job, as John highlights.
The thing is, all these big spending owners now at Ditchit have all got the letters ready saying, well, I'm sorry, Paul, but that's where she's at, and good luck to her, I say.
Yeah, good on her.
Why not, indeed? Yeah, a bit of positivity from the Barstewards one. You see, we're not negative shitbags.
No, we're not. Good on her. And she's a young person, and you look, at the end of the day, she's under a lot of pressure. Yes, she's the daughter of a very, very famous man, you know, but the pressure's on, and she'll, for her own self-respect, want to get it right. And she's not trying to screw a side profit out of it. So everything she buys will be with, you know, with good intentions. So you've got to support that. You've got to support people that are just doing it for the right reasons.
Okay, moving on. Bert Black, former owner of Betfair Exchange and founder, of course, of Betfair Exchange. John, you say here, living proof geniuses usually have only one good idea.
Damn right.
For you listeners that haven't seen this, Bert Black has came out and said it's sort of a plan to save racing. No each way betting. It's performance betting. The better your horse does, the more you get rewarded. Things like that. Hasn't that concept already been done? I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong. Spread betting.
Well, you back a winner. You get more reward than if you back the second anyway, don't you?
Yeah, it's on the spreads back in the day. You could say buy a horse at 35. If they go 50 for win, 25 for second, 10 for third, you make 15 ticks if it wins. You're doing 10 ticks if it finishes second, and you lose 25 ticks if it's third, and then you do the lot if it's not in three. The concept's well proven, but it's not a new idea, and I found it astonishing.
He wanted each way betting, Canning.
Madness.
Sure remains very, very popular. I mean, this idea, in all honesty, it's only got listened to because he's Bert Black and he invented Betfair. There's an organisation I can think of that's had a pretty good idea about saving the entire racing industry, but it's getting no fucking coverage because we didn't invent fucking Betfair.
Fair point, really. Chris, your take on it?
Look, I echo John's sentiments. I mean, Bert Black is clearly a very intelligent man, right? So you wouldn't want to play poker against him. He's clever. But he reminds me of Nicholas Tasseb, the chap that wrote the Black Swan book years ago. And he calls people like that intellectual yet idiots, because they come up with fantastic ideas based on data and analysis, etc. But they have no application to the real world at all. In theory, it might be a good idea, but you try and apply that to real world scenarios and it's an absolute disaster. And I think it's, were it not for the fact that he's a wealthy man with a high profile, that idea would not get off the ground if it was, from Dave from Scunthorpe. It really wouldn't. So I just don't. I don't see any mileage in that, and I think it deserves to be filed in the circular filing cabinet on the floor.
Seems on this genius's last idea didn't quite fly when he threw his lot in with Michael Owen and Tom Dascombe, did he?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a pattern, isn't it, John? We've said about the Dragons. Den. You look at people that are lauded as commercial geniuses, but very, very few have more than one big successful idea.
Album, isn't it?
Yeah, the difficult second album. And you look at people like Alan Sugar, who the papers portray as an entrepreneur. Most of Sugar's income comes from property investment. Not inventions or products. He's got a significant property portfolio, and when you strip that away, what has he actually invented or innovated? Nothing. And that applies to a lot of these very rich people. But once you get a big pot of cash behind you, it kind of convinces you that you're, somehow a commercial genius. And the results don't back that up. And so I don't think Bert Black's idea is a goer. And I think, as Chris Paul spit on the floor, to keep in with the current mood, you should imagine trying to explain to Dave from Doncaster why he's better in fourth place didn't actually yield more than he expected. So really difficult to apply in the real world, and it doesn't have legs in my view.
No, none, zero. So next question, John says, are you a fan of particular jockeys, trainers, owners? So we've got a lot of questions on that. So Ronnie Omelette starts us off, and he said, the best jockey silks colours you would wear out and about.
What a good question.
Lord Derby.
Oh yeah, Lord Derby. That's a corker. Yeah, I like that. Christine Feather, silver bucks colours. The old black with the white stripes down the front. That'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Well, the producers won Arrow colours in the house, but
bedroom.
Yeah, we're not
fuck all else. Yeah, nothing else. Yeah, you dirty bastard. Oh, I bet you get to wear the old Sheffield Wednesday away kit, don't you?
Anyway,
I should. She'll edit this out. I know her.
Well, we'll see on that. I don't think so. No. She likes to leave as much in as possible, as long as we're not doing what we do sometimes, which is stretching the old Ofcom regulations.
Yes.
Right, yeah, anyway, so I would say the so risky colours. Remember them?
Oh, yeah. Harlequin, wasn't it? It's all sort of like mad little, brilliant. Yeah, I like
matching pants, wouldn't you? Right.
You would.
Why would you want that?
I'd want some Charlie Man +4s with it, and a flat cap, and wander around town like that, looking like a complete absolute.
Knob.
You'd have to do it for a dare. You'd have to do it for a dare. Okay, some viewers. You can't see us, and it's a good job. Listeners point. Jeff Lynch says, Howard Johnson, trained close to me, was a great character in the Mickey's to be mould. I thought that'd please you, John. And he had some great horses for a small ownership, great racing silks as well. Bill Carson first started working in 83 when I was took under the wings by racing men, became a big fan of William Edward Robin Hood Hastings Bass. I thought, what a name, what a sport. Oxford One says, I was always told Pat Henry in the last on a Monday night at Windsor was a license to print money. Not sure about that. Actually, he's got a point there, because Pat liked to drink, so Pat would want to be getting off, in the old sauce for a bit, I think. Ice Cold Cube, Ryan Moore, He's been a fan ever since he said this is bollocks behind the hideous Claire Baldwin at Ascot. The pissed off jocks were lined up in the paddock being introduced to the Toffee Nose Brigade. No one cared, just pathetic. Probably the ever-gushing false Balding's idea. So questions on jockeys for us now, and other questions. Walter Jabsco's been on. He said, some good names. What was the one jockey that, when the hard-earned was down, got the job done for you? Chris, you must know a jockey that you thought, when it's D-Day, I want this man on.
Well, I would, if it's the flat, I'm afraid, I know I'm going to be catcalled here, Shane Kelly. I know people criticise him, but when the dough's on, he's ice cold. Barney Curley used him. Our mutual friend Gary Moore uses them. I think he's is very, very good when the money's down. Now, you can criticise him for other rides, but I think when the money's down, I thought he was excellent. And over the jumps, you remember years ago, my personal sort of knowledge of it, Warren Marston, when the dough was on.
Say that.
Yeah, Warren Marston was dynamite for Dave Wintle. Look, he had plenty of misses, but he rarely fucked up when the dough was on. And Warren Marston was excellent at that because he had his few quid on as well, I think, I'm sure. But yeah, Shane Kelly and Warren Marston were my two favourites, but that's just personal view.
John, who'd be your favourite? Because I bet you've got some from down the years that you loved it when they were on, when the cash was.
Well, aside from the obvious that I was sort of involved with, I'll say Peter Bloomfield, though he used to ride Terry Ramsden's horses.
Oh, yes, John, definitely.
Totally under the radar, had no fans whatsoever. He never got the shorter price because he was riding it, and he was bloody effective. Jimmy Fortune, who I always felt didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah. Brian Rouse, remember Brian Rouse? He was lethal when the dough was on.
Yeah, I used to remember Brian Rouse. Jimmy Fortune, we always called him Jimmy Fortunes because he loved a bet, did Jimmy. So, I mean, to be honest, that's got to be high on the list because back in the day, we got a bit of info on stuff he wrote. That's why we called him Jimmy Fortunes, because seriously, when this lad had stuck the cash down, the old whip rolls.
Yeah, you were getting it right, didn't you?
There was nothing missed when Jimmy had the cash down. So I think that's a great selection, Jimmy Fortunes. We like that one. Good question, that. Walter Jabsko. Darren Doyle being on. When it comes to backing one you fancy, when is the value gone in terms of price? Right, I'll give the nerd answer first of all. My minimum is 6%, as a rule of thumb, because banks still pay about 4%, I believe. So about 6%. So in other words, if I like one at 10-1, that means I've got to make it an 11-2 chance to back it at 10s. The same as if I like a 2-1 chance, I've got to make it 6-4, really, to get involved. That's how I work. So 6% is the absolute bare minimum. If you're saying the value's gone, it's gone. You don't play. That's the rule. You just do not play. That's how I operate. Chris, you just love a fucking bet, don't you? You're not bothered.
Well, bottom line is, that's absolutely right. And I think that applies to a lot of recreational punters. I play so small that the actual monetary difference between an 8-1 shot and a 11-2 shot, it makes no difference. If I think it's going to win, in quotes, which is a mug way of doing it, I'll have a bet. But I think you mentioned before, there are some yards, obviously doesn't operate anymore, where really, if it's off, any price is a good price. We talk about Ronan McNally, I make this 7-2 chance, it's evens. Evens is a great price if it's off because it's a 5-on chance. So, there are some, and Charles Burns as well, there are some yards where take any price, it's going to win, bar a fall.
I take the point on that. I'm a nerd and I'll price one on what I know, but then that's not all the variables, is it? It's what I don't know can kind of make. Let's say if I fancy one, Chris, and I've told you, and I say I really like this one, but price is skinny. What if I don't know that second fav's not off or something like that? Or not busy, or he's not quite at the race, or he's had a bad journey down there. So many variables where sometimes even taking shorter, if you really like one, can work, but you need to know.
Yeah, I had a dog that was stop for ages, for absolutely got right down in the grades that, that was in the first race somewhere that, based on what we knew was an absolute certainty. But then we found out that the other 5 weren't off either. They were all fucking half asleep. So, it was a sort of a 5-2 chance, but it was like a 100-1 on chance. The only way it could possibly have got beaten was if, the traps didn't open and it was a void race. So in those circumstances, if you have as much information as possible, or you're privy to that kind of information, that's when you think, actually, I'm prepared to go under the odds based on form, because I know that, there are loads of non-tries in the race, and they come along once in a blue moon, don't they?
Indeed. So, John, what's your modus? Like, in terms of, like when you really like one, are you pretty good at like saying no, even though you're like all over it? And let's say it's been smashed a bit, you still sometimes have a bit on?
I'm perfectly happy to walk away from it if it's been smashed. I sometimes walk away from them before they get smashed if they fuck the third run up and show too much.
Yeah.
As regards percentages and that, I wouldn't differ too far from yourself. Certainly grade 1 flat tracks, decent racing. Over the sticks, it'd be a different story. It'd have to stand out more than Frankel on Viagra, I think.
Yeah. Covered some mares. The way we do Bar Stewards, Edge and Early Bird, plug there for the site, we do it on 6%. It's got to be a minimum price for a 1 point win bet. And if we do the 2 points, which are obviously very rare, it's got to be 15% plus in terms of value in the bet. I think that's good for all punters. I think that's a fair barometer in terms of your staking, etc. Obviously, you can fine-tune it better than that. I'm just giving a broad what you should be doing, or what we do. Luke Tucker's been on. Who had the bigger lunch at the Grand National Weights event this week? Skelton or Nicholls? What's the betting?
I think probably Big Dan. Ever expanding.
Big P on time form, him, plenty of improvement to come on that. Big P, he is.
He clearly don't miss a buffet, does he, Dan?
That big piece for plate size, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a buffet, he takes one of them big plates in, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like Partridge did. Waltzes in with this massive plate.
Not one of them oblong jobs to cut turkey up on.
Yeah. And goes down it and totally decimates it.
Goes down the line, taking everything.
Yeah, just like he does with his punting. Put yards punch, yeah. Good old Langer Dan. Loves a buffet. So we're saying Dan, I think, unanimous there, Luke Tucker. Even beats water ski feet, doesn't he, John?
Oh, absolutely.
Man from Atlantis.
Yeah. Good ones, them. Saw them pictures when he were on holiday in looked like the Caribbean recently. Could have been Dubai, though. I don't know where he was. Jeff Lynch been on. Students at Ascot for a £5. Good thing or not for the sport? Well, I can tell you now, 2,800 students took up that offer. A lot of people have said, look, that's good, isn't it? It's a good thing. Surely they're going to... That defies your grey pound, Chris.
Yeah, it does. I mean, but, it's not either or, I don't think. The sport is big enough for everybody. But my point is, if you want a quick return on your marketing spend, a quick bang for your buck, the grey pound's where it's at. The younger people is more of a long-term investment to try and encourage them to stay interested in the sport. But if you want people today, it's the grey pound, and I'm convinced of that. I think it's your National Trust type punter that really needs to be encouraged to, spend their leisure pound in racing. And not just punting, but, stable visits, syndicates, all the other things that go with it, because they've got time and they've got money.
I think both. 2,800 that took that offer up. Imagine you've gone racing for the first time. You've won money. You're more likely to get involved in the sport if you have a memorable day, back in 3 or 4 winners, a few glasses of fizz or whatever you drink.
Totally. That's how everyone gets involved. The worst thing that can happen to you is your first bet's a winner. That's the curse, isn't it? That's happened to most of us. This is all right. That's handy.
Yeah.
I'm into this.
Someone did ask a question on how did you all get into this? Can you remember your first early bets? Could have been Sam the Catch. I mean, I can tell you my experience, at which, obviously my father was a bookmaker, so that's also going to help. But my first racing experience was at Beverley. John, it was the midweek meeting, the Hillary Needler, Brian Yeardley. They used to run it on Derby Day, didn't they?
Wasn't it Derby Eve?
Yeah, Derby evening. So it was Epsom Derby and then Wednesday night. And we got a big coach trip with local working men's club. I think I'm about 13 or 14 time. And even though my dad were a bookmaker, he didn't really encourage me to bet at that point. Anyway, when I went working men's club, do £7 in my pocket. I managed to back about Chris Pulley, about 5 out of 6 winners. It was ridiculous. I went home with about £36. I even backed last winner at some sevens by lad trained by, I think, Dave Morris. Only reason I backed it because Templegate said it'd be suited by strong uphill finish. No other reason. I was clueless. Fascinated by it all. The roar of the crowd in final furlong when a favourite hit front. And you heard that roar in the old days. Not so much now in a midweek meeting because not as many go, but back in the day. a fav at it front, like half a furlong out, just taking it up.
Northern courses all the same pack then, didn't
Oh, well, yeah, that's how
Yeah.
busy Beverley were then. We were like in a packed out middle concourse bit. As a young kid, I got the view of the stands, like a packed out stands, and seeing crowd roar when a fav it front, especially when you were on it as well, like for your quid. Wow, what an experience this is. It's like something else. That was my first intro into it. And then obviously, once my dad heard about it, because he didn't even know I'd gone that night, he then said, right, you can start learning clerking and coming on course with me in a few years' time. So he taught me calculus, taught me clerking. That was it. That was my intro into sport. Loved it. John, can you remember like any early experiences that really old fond memories that got you into it?
Obviously, racing ruled the roost in our house, so being able to speak pretty much, everything was governed by the racing calendar. I mean, York in August was always on the agenda. I had an auntie that lived in York, so we trooped off to stay with her for 4 days. My mother had a cousin at Midland. We used to go there for short breaks. As a kid, I never had like what you'd call a conventional holiday where you go and play on a beach or something like that. Everything was to like training centres, what have you, and you just sort of grow up thinking about very little other than racing, where the next races are. I mean, I always remember as a little kid, 5, 6-year-old, they used to take me to Redcar and that. The size of the crowds was astonishing, I mean, because of like me, just being little and that, I mean, if you were moving down the betting ring or anything with my dad, I'd just get knocked from our sort of breakfast time, I was sort of relieved to get up in the stands. Now, I mean, nearly have a game of football down there.
I've got to admit, I find it like pretty sad, but in general, I do find northern courses still well attended when I've been. There seems to be a lot, Chris says, of the grey pound in attendance at these meetings for some reason.
But don't you find? Sorry to interrupt, but what John said resonates. You got into it, Lee, because your dad was a bookmaker. John's family was all about racing. My family was all about racing. My dad and his sister were just punters, and everything. My mum hated it, but whenever TV was on, it was always racing. Every weekend we'd go racing, and that's how you got into it. And I think now that doesn't exist, does it? You don't have racing families. It's not part of working class culture anymore, because there's so many different things to spend your money on. And I think that's the problem. And I went race first, but I had, my dad took me to Kempton and he used to be race form private handicap, which used to come in a brown envelope sealed. And it was a little book of ratings and, blah, blah, blah. I looked at it and I liked the name of a horse, which was top rated in a handicap at Kempton, ridden by a guy called Richard Sidebottom. I think he was an apprentice that never went on. And I said, can I have £1 on that? And my dad said, oh, yeah, got no fucking chance. My dad was big on the favourite. And it won. And it beat my dad's horse half a length. And I was so pleased. And he stuck a fiver in my hand and he said, I always went, fuck this shit, we're going home. And then that was it, because he got beat. And I drew the money and he said, nah, fuck it, we're going home now. He had the right hum. But that always stayed with me. And I thought, this is all right. Why don't you just follow the ratings? But of course, after that, the ratings weren't as good. But yeah, Richard Alpha Centurion.
Them little handicap boats and that, they used to get shared around the workplace, didn't they? But like now, if you got a job somewhere, you'd be looking to find somebody else that like racing.
It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist at all. I mean, I've worked in so many places over the years, and you can count on the fingers of a mitten people that what I would call are really into the sport. Very, very few. But in my dad's era and yours, it was kind of everybody was into it, weren't they? To some extent, but not anymore.
Great little question. That sorry, I missed it out. Whoever sent it in, it sometimes happens that on the Twitter threads, but I just remember it. Hedge has been on firstly, and I know the game's heading into the abyss. So this may render it pointless in 5 years. But how did you learn the game? Any resources you found particularly good for learning how to bet on horse racing and just the sport in general? For me, after the Beverley experience, of course, I'm into it then, aren't I? I've got 32 quid in my pocket. I'm feeling like I'm big man. So with some of that money, it was time for Clive Holt and Fine Form as your guide book. I read all that and it absolutely made me even fall more in love with the sport. System of like 2 wins, a course and distance winner, rating of 13 points, maximum fine form bet. Even though the system was shit, it didn't matter. It did not matter to me. To see old like Grifter Clive pull this off in a book to like make you attracted to the sport. When he used to say, I attended Haydock, I asked for the bits, the fractions on a 701 perk that was time form second top rated, not top rated. He said, I didn't like the top rated one, so I backed the second top rated. And he says, after the win, I sat down in the bar with a Gaelic coffee. How good that tastes.
Lovely.
If that's not selling you a sport, I don't know when. It's the way it was written. I must have read it 60 times.
Red book, wasn't it? Shiny cover, wasn't it? That sort of glossy kind of, yeah. I mean, but doesn't that speak to our individual psychology and what motivates us to punt? Now, you see, the first thing I ever subscribed to was because of my love of skullduggery, because I thought, fuck that, I want to get a bit of info. So I subscribed to something called Spyform. Do you ever remember that? It was advertised, and right, so basically they used to send you a list of dark ones every week, and they used to dig out one or two quite interesting ones, but you had to sort of guess when they were off. But it was always sort of, things with 9 duck eggs trained by John Sutcliffe, and you knew it had a day in mind, so you just took your chances every time. Is it today? Is it today? And and I used to subscribe to that. But I got into Fine Form like you, and there was loads of others, and I had all the Time Form Perspective, and you name it. I used to have it, but that's what gets you interested, because you want to try and get better, don't you? You want to try and get good at your hobby, and that's how most of us kind of responded, didn't we? Really.
Yeah, I can remember, like, this is how I invested my money as a youth. It's terrible. If any gambling arm groups listening to this, you'll be shocked at this. A bookie I knew used to obviously get all Sporting Lives, and he kept them from betting shop and stuff. He had the wall copy, and he had a copy for himself. So I paid him £100 for a year's worth of Sporting Lives. I was devising systems back at like 15 years old, like going through the old Sporting Lives on a night. I get home from school, go through all the results, saying, oh, right, like, is there an angle in here for like last time out winners? Or I'd be like recording them manually. This is before internet and computers. I was that in love and fascinated with it all, in terms of, you can make money at this. You can actually make money.
Bayros where you were using a quill pen, weren't
yeah.
you?
Yeah. So there was no internet. My mum's horror, it was hilarious, because my mum obviously worked full time, and so the bookie drove round in his old Volvo tank estate with his Sporting Lives filling the back of the car, and we're carrying them into my bedroom. And my mum gets home and sees these 2 fucking piles of Sporting Lives up to the ceiling. She come in and said, "What's this?" I'm not having this. I says, what do you mean you're not having this? This is research. She said, I'm not having it. It's a fire hazard.
Oh, bless.
You let it stand. Got some stick for that. So I'm there as a teenage boy, sat with two double-decker piled Sporting Lives, year's supply. Brilliant.
When I was in my early 20s, not as a kid, I took a different route. I've mentioned before, I'm not going to mention his name because he still works in racing, but I had a kind of an arrangement with a journeyman jockey who would ring me at home, basically with info. And my mum used to answer the phone, so it's X on the phone. He's quick grab the phone, etc. And he was absolutely fucking dynamite. I think he only tipped me one loser, but I think ultimately at the end of it, he realised that was a time when Roger Buffon was moving in and clamping down, and he kind of blanked it. But and I thought, this is brilliant. I could do this forever. But of course, it only lasted sort of 4 or 5 months. But it showed me, or it gave me hope that you can win, you can beat the game, if only you know things that other people don't. And here we are 25 years later, and realise the folly of that approach.
John, your resource, I know what I think you're going to say. Right, and I hope you do, because I'll see if I'm right. But what's your best resource?
My best resource would be watching as much racing as I possibly can.
Yep.
And as many horses as I possibly can.
Chris Poole, trumpets are out. Yeah, absolutely. Your mince pies are absolutely vital, I think, in terms of angle, because I've known you a long time, and I would say your eyes on the horse itself is honestly, it's an angle no one's got, because there's no phone book publication doing this. There's no times, sectionals, whatever you want to call it, what we all use these days. John's not bothered about any of that shit. If you even start talking to him about it, he like falls asleep. So there's no point. John's had an eye for a long, long time in this game, and I think it's fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating to work with him.
He's a savant. John, without blowing smoke up John's hole, John is different gear. You know, it's not something you can teach.
Nope.
You either got it or you haven't. You
Yeah.
know, and John is extraordinary, and that's not plugging. You know, he is close to a genius, as you could see in terms of, you know, of what he sees or how he interprets that. And you know, I've never encountered him. I'm just privileged to hear what he says, because he can give you insights.
Sorry, I'm talking about him while he's here, but when he gets excited about one, it's not often, because you can't. That's the game. Horses are just shells and mostly, and just horses. But when he really gets excited about one, and I can remember the one last year, and it broke his heart really. It was Carla's Way as a 2-year-old, and he said, "Oh my God, she is absolutely. This is going to win the Guineas," and he was so upset at the placing of the filly by the Crisfords. He was just saying, "What are they doing? What on earth are they doing? This shouldn't be running here. This is crazy." And what a talented filly, and it shows you how even trainers or connections can ruin certain.
That's it. I mean, it's all right to spot one, but then the trainer's got to play a ball.
Yeah, well, that. So, great question, Hedge. We move on. We love answering stuff on that. And you'll get more of that on Bar Stewards Extra with Midweek Madnesses and, of course, Edge and Early Bird Services. On to a bit of a scandal here. We don't like to do, we like to cheer people up, but we have to talk about it. Dover Port scandal. 7 Irish thoroughbreds that were among 20 animals being illegally smuggled in horrific conditions that were seized at the Dover port. Credit to Minnie on this on Twitter that follows us, researches a lot of this and connected with this. Superdermo, The Expert, Dylan's Diamond, Into the Lane, unnamed 5 and 6-year-olds by Conduit, a 5-year-old by Marla. 5 of the thoroughbreds had to be euthanized. They were in such poor condition.
Jesus.
So just adding to this, a tweet from Dash Grange Stud said, "Perhaps Gavin Cromwell and Mr. Cathal McGovern would like to explain how Superdermo, who ran in December, ended up on this wagon. How about you, Castle Dillon Stud? You were selling Into the Lane on behalf of an owner in December. Who was it? The poor mare was unsold by you and ended up on this wagon. You must know what happened next. If we don't answer these questions and call out the responsibility publicly, it will never be resolved. If a horse has no value, then you do the decent thing and euthanize it properly and with dignity. The people who allow this are simply scum and should be shunned and humiliated." And he says he's calling it out. Dash Grain Stud, great tweet. Thoughts, chap?
I echo what the lad says.
Awful stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
The optics on this, again, that's like the complexion of the race changes. But the optics on this are absolutely terrible, Chris.
It is, and you know, I'm a massive namby-pamby, bleeding heart liberal animal lover. Yes, I love racing, but these animals, you know, are bred to race, but they have no choice. So the least you can do is give them dignity. If they're not up to scratch, then you repurpose them and give them a nice life. You don't stick them on a lorry and chuck them out. They're not commodities. They're living, sentient beings that are doing what man wants them to do. And, you know, treat them with dignity, look after them and treat them with respect. And I think it's absolutely fucking disgusting. And you know, and from a, you know, hard-nosed view, you're right, the optics are shocking, because if I'm anti-racing, I'm going to point to that. All this crap, oh, we look after our horses, oh, we find them good homes. Well, you don't. Look. And that's just what we know about. So I agree. Great tweet, and I'm with them 100%. I think it's disgusting. Absolutely disgraceful.
Yep. Great stuff that Minnie does on things like this on Twitter. We appreciate being alerted by this. Gavin Cromwell, come on, man. Oh, Jesus Christ. You're a festival winning, a big league trainer. Come on. Don't hide behind this. Make a statement. Make a comment on this. Don't just brush it under the carpet.
There's a moral responsibility, right, to come out. If it's not, you know, if it's not his fault or whatever, he needs to come out and say, you know, explain the circumstances, you know, because he has a moral responsibility. Those animals were in his care, and then suddenly they're not. And you know, he needs to explain. I really do think he needs to, you know, to issue a statement about it, or you know, or try and do something about it, because that is shit.
Sure. A topic here that we probably don't need to comment on, but bad payers in racing. Rebecca Menzies has taken charge of horses after being left out of pocket by owner Stephen Bean of Racehorse Owners Club. And again, some of these clubs, I get why the BHA have sort of made the stance. It's the wrong stance to take in terms of like affordability checks. Poor Nick Goff had to endure the other week. That's a terrible plan. Of course it's a terrible plan. It's the BHA, for God's sake. As we said, Rebecca Menzies has taken charge on Lou, the horses because of non-payment to the yard regarding the trading of these racehorses. That's the policy, BHA. Do you ever listen to fucking common sense? It's simple, isn't it? You don't need affordability checks. You just need a power of attorney, and you have to sign it when buying a horse. If you don't pay your fucking bills, after 30 days, the trainer has full right to take control of that horse, to sell that horse and redistribute the proceeds pro rata on unpaid bills. It's that fucking simple. It angers me. There's so many simple rules.
Such an easy win for the next chief exec, isn't it, coming in? You know, you can do that at a pen stroke.
Yeah, I mean, going through fucking Nick Goff's bank statements when he's a professional gambler, right? That's not recognised as an income, as we know. How do you even say I can afford it with no guarantees you're going to win? No guarantees you're not going to lose your job next week, mate. It's how it is.
And yet, John Dance, welcome aboard.
Exactly.
Welcome aboard.
There you go,
yeah,
John.
no problems at all. Yeah.
Do what you want. Time to sort it out, the BHA. Cheltenham Festival restaurant closed all 4 days. We were told this week, the information in good faith. Wouldn't be surprised if the Fez crowd, Jockey Club racecourses, probably signed deals with bookmakers to fill it up, to make it look better than it is. But obviously the money won't be great for them because basically bookmakers could probably fill these restaurants, Chris, with VIP days for their big rollers, you'd think, that kind of thing. So I'm not saying that will happen. I don't want to end up with egg on my face and say it's closed all 4 days and then someone says, you said it was closed all 4 days. They're likely to offer, I reckon, if they don't want to look daft, they might offer deals with certain, obviously, corporations to fill it up. I could see that happening. That's where I stand on that. It shows that changing times, bad value at Cheltenham. People's had enough, haven't they, chaps?
Well, yeah, because
Yeah,
whatever other walk of life you're in at the moment, the working class are getting shafted. They're having to look at the spends because fuel bills are doubling and nobody's doing anything about it. That's the thing, you know what I mean? Because the people at the top are happy. They're raking it in, they're taking it home in ever increasing size wheelbarrows. Nobody cares. There's nobody in Westminster doing anything about it. So the working class, as we say, are having to cut their cloth accordingly. And luxuries like racecourse restaurants and that are just going for the shit, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's the the so-called middle class as well. It's creeping up, and it's a very, very expensive day out. Whether you go 1, 2, or for the whole day, it's hugely expensive, and you got to look at them. That's the equivalent of a 6-week holiday somewhere. And do I want to spend that money? And it's becoming increasingly difficult to justify spending the eye-watering sums it costs to go to Cheltenham. It's no surprise.
They're all off to Benidorm. And I reckon that car park thing has had an effect as well last year. If you remember, there was bad weather, obviously, that the car parks were flooded. The cars couldn't get out. There were spinning wheels. And the local farmers came on. It wasn't Cheltenham that did anything. Also, they've been stuck all night. The local farmers decided to take action, bring the tractors, and pull them out for 30 quid a go. The customers that were in them car parks have already paid 30 quid to park the car.
And I mean, that's in itself a raging obscenity, isn't it, when they're coming in and spending what they're spending?
Yeah.
That is just pulling their pants down for the sake of it, and because they think they can. In all honesty, they deserve to flounder.
Long-faced punter's been on. Pie and peas with strippers between races in the unused Cheltenham restaurant. Surely that would get the numbers up.
Don't even have to have pie or peas, do you? Forget, bring your own pack.
Like Adam Norman would be up for that. Strippers and corned beef sandwiches down your socks.
Piccalilli as well in his socks.
Yeah, he liked all that shit. It would Norman.
Yeah.
Would all stick, man. Good stuff, long-faced punter. So coming on to value then. So we've said how bad value Cheltenham is. Go racing in Yorkshire time, chaps. This is it. This is D-Day. 26th of February, Go Racing in Yorkshire finishes their season ticket. There's a season ticket to get in there and get the best value in racing. Access to all 9 Yorkshire tracks with immense benefits. You've got free parking. It's all the festivals. You get the lot. 183 fixtures for this. 66 weekend and bank holiday fixtures. And it's grandstand and paddock on all fixtures, including the big races at Doncaster, York, you name it. It's an incredible offer. And what's more, if you say, no, it's too expensive, paying one lump, they're now doing a season ticket pay over time, which is from £46 a month. So you can budget £46 a month. God, you've only got to go to how many meetings? What you're saving? It's ridiculous value.
You're on their payroll.
Yeah,
I swear to God. You're
the
up. You've
lovely
got your
Charlotte
hand out
Russell,
there.
she does a great job there.
Nah, yeah, no, you're on the fucking wage bill, mate. I tell you, honestly,
I'm a sellout,
yeah.
but listen to this.
No, it's a genuinely good offer.
There's nothing in this country that offers value like that. So when you moan about admission prices, we all do. We all say, "Oh, I'm not paying £30 to get in there." Right? Well, don't. If you live in Yorkshire or you're around Yorkshire and you think, "Well, I probably get to about 20 meetings in Yorkshire over a year," well, it's going to be value because you get your free parking. For example, York on its own would be £100 for 4 days for the EBO. For grandstand and paddock, and that's a deal that York offer near the time. So that's £100 there, but you get your parking. So I really think the top offer, and please support that initiative because it's no good moaning at organisations saying they don't do anything. Go Racing in Yorkshire certainly do, and that is the best value that racing has to offer. We do have extra discount codes as well, so get in touch with us on that if you're serious about subscribing up, which will give you even further discount on these offers. So please support the initiative that Tracks are doing in order to get more people going racing. Interesting from Kent Chopper, Keith Watson. He spotted something and I thought, fucking hell, this is incredible. Genting ads on Racing TV, chaps. I couldn't believe what I saw. So Racing TV, I'm paying £29.98 a month to subscribe to. Genting have put an advert on Racing TV. Well, Racing TV are selling it as a competition. Win £2,000 VIP Cheltenham tickets. But if you read the small print, this is disgusting. What do we have to do to win these tickets? In return, you had to open an account with Gentings and turn over £1,000 on the slots. Can you believe that?
Jeez.
Should we talk?
I can
Should
believe
we talk
it.
optics again, chaps? that buzzword again, optics.
That's dreadful. That's dreadful, isn't it? That's appalling. Well spotted. Because I wouldn't have looked. I've seen that advert and I thought didn't occur to me. But you got to turn over a grand on slots. You can't sort of just mix it up with other sports. No. Wow.
Qualify for the tickets or potentially to win these tickets. That's the criteria. And that's what Racing TV are advertising as a competition. What thick fuckers. And I'll say it now, that's a terrible look in terms of climate at the moment, encouraging people to do the bollocks on slot machines. And then you're not even winning the ticket. You're just in a draw to win the ticket.
Enter the draw. Wow. That's awful. That is if that's the terms and conditions, whoever agreed to take that advert on should hang their head in shame. Now, I'd like to think it's because they're clueless, but if they've gone into that with their eyes wide open and understand it, then heads should roll for that, because that's dire.
John, you've got to agree with that, aren't you? It's terrible, isn't it?
Going back to when it was Racing UK, I've never had any regard to the company whatsoever, and this just puts the tin hat on it, to be honest.
What do you think, listeners? Let us know in the comments on Twitter. Absolutely dreadful. BHA and the BGC. We'll talk about Mr. Dunshee at the BHA horse racing. We tweeted back at them. They never say anything to us, even if we send stuff in that are constructive to them to help them. Mr. Dunshee has come out and said they have repeatedly told everybody about the harm that it could do to racing regarding affordability check. Repeatedly, John.
They must have told them psychically, because I've never heard them say anything.
Yeah, in invisible ink.
Absolutely dreadful. And Paul Fitzgerald comes onto this. He said he looked very true, this chap. Check out press releases on the BGC website for the last 18 months or so. Safe this, responsible that, best practice. Barely a squeak from them on affordability. Lockstep with the UK Gambling Commission. Totally right. And here comes the Gambling Commission. Here they come. Play the trombones. Here come the bureaucrats. A question for you two guys. What happens when a public sector organisation makes a mistake and does things badly? Chris and John, who wants to answer first?
My experience, as a former public sector worker, of over 20 years, ultimately nothing really happens other than they have a review, right? So they'll commission a review, and that review will say, here are the failings, lessons must be learned. It'll be a review, or if it's a real massive fuck up, they'll have a public inquiry. But the individuals that preside over the disaster are quietly moved along sideways to other jobs or are promoted. So there are very, very few real world consequences for public sector leaders who fuck up. They're either pensioned off or they're promoted. So, you look at the scandals that have occurred in, where children in local authority care or have been murdered by their parents or foster carers. The individuals in social services who had direct management of those cases, nothing happens to them. There's a review. Oh, yeah, well, we need to do better. But no one ever does better, do they? That's the problem. So, there's no consequences really for any quango or public sector organisation.
Now, just to sort of like respond to this is how I see it, that when a public sector makes a mistake or fail, it usually gets expanded, bloated, and is given more resources to sort further problems out that it's created for itself. Yeah, that's how I see it.
That's right, and you're right, and for actual meaningful change to occur, because the public sector organisations, many are bloated, but there are many frontline important government departments that are massively under resourced, like prison and probation service. Give you a real life example that is under resourced by about 60%. But but it'll only take for a probation officer or a frontline member of staff to be murdered by a person on probation for anything meaningful to happen.
John,
and that's how it works.
In my experience, the business of virtue signalling amongst these organisations, it's not going to stop really, no matter what you throw at it. I noticed a while back that the Daily Mail had to go against Bake Off, believe it or not. When the Muslim woman won Bake Off,
the
Daily Mail had a dig and said someone else might have won if they'd baked a chocolate mosque. I know this is not the case. You cannot win Bake Off just by baking politically correct buildings, because I sent Mary Berry a fudge abortion clinic and she sent me a letter telling me to fuck off.
There you go. Last question. I've got a visual image of that. You sending a picture in of this, like, a fudge cake abortion clinic to Mary Berry. Mary Berry, I watched her on a programme and she says, I've just made this here. This is a lovely meal, lovely sort of light meal for, when the ladies come in from the tennis club.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, what normal folk do you know go to a tennis club?
Baking for an England that doesn't exist anymore, isn't she?
No. Anyway, good old Mary Berry, an institution. Question to finish. Hugh Brampton file. Is that a euphemism for something? I don't know.
Probably.
Can you explain in layman's terms, Shell, why bookies who make a living out of people betting want to reduce our stakes to a pittance via affordability checks? Myself and many I speak to would love a succinct explanation. Of course, it's quite easy, Hugh, from my perspective. Bookmakers want to trim their bush. They want rid of all the unprofitable accounts. It's very difficult for them to make money out of, so therefore they're no use to them. They're not interested in racing itself. They're more interested in a minimum bet on racing, £10 merchants to support racing, to go on to other things like their lucrative slot campaigns behind the scenes. Anything to add to that, chaps?
No, very succinct. It's about improving their profit margins. That's it, isn't it, really? But I've always said that I do think they're overzealous in restricting people. I can't believe that there are so many successful clued up punters, and I do think they overreact. And I think there is an opportunity for a punter, for a bookmaker with some balls that are prepared to let punters have a real go, because I think most will fall by the wayside. Most accounts are going to be losing accounts, and I think people are closed far too early.
I think that's it. I think they do that though for a reason. That I think it's somewhere between 12 and 14% a bookmaker has to make that account profitable on the punter, because of their overheads on racing. Don't forget, bookmakers have to pay a lot of money towards racing in terms of levy. They don't pay anything to football, nothing to slots. So they've worked it out and said, well, why should we support this product like we do? I get that. I actually get that business point of view. You've got to do as a punter. So if you're a 3% losing punter on a year, you're no good to them. Absolutely no good.
No.
That's where we are.
That's a good point.
John, anything to finish with?
It's very much similar to, like, say, a farmer in this current climate with 3 daughters, isn't it? Wanting the best and jettisoning the worst customer, if you like.
Yeah.
And there was one around these parts not so long ago. He had 3 daughters. And somebody came to take the eldest one out, and he said, my name is Joe. I'll take her to a show. Do you think she'll go? And he said, well, that's all right. I'll take a chance, yeah. And then the middle daughter, another lad comes to say, and he said, my name's Lance. I'll take her to a dance. Do you think there's any chance? And he said, yeah, well, I'm going to risk it. But poor old Chuck only just introduced. He's selling the farmer shop.
And on that note, folks, we're going to leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We've certainly covered plenty. And obviously, rest in peace, Marky O'Sullivan, and best wishes to the family going forwards in dealing with this tragic occurrence. That's all from me, John, Chris. Bye for now.